Welcome to Season 7 of True Blue Conversations with your host, Adam Bloom. Real talk with those who pledge to keep us safe with grit, sacrifice and determination. Let's get on with the show. This episode of True Blue Conversations is proudly brought to you by Loudon Private Wealth, the team trusted by professionals, veterans and families across Australia to build real long-term financial security. If you want to take control of your finances, protect your future and build real generational wealth, Loudon Private Wealth are the people you want in your corner. They don't do gimmicks, they don't do hype, just smart strategy and honest advice coupled with real-world experience. Check out the links in the description to contact Warren and the team via loudonpw.com.au or 02 8313 0418. Now let's get back to the show. This episode of True Blue Conversations was brought to you by Dead Reckoning Rum, creating individual rum releases commemorating the diggers lost in Afghanistan, proudly supporting veterans, donating 50% of all their profits to veterans organisations around Australia. Look up Dead Reckoning Rum, buy some bottles, connect via Instagram and Facebook and give them your support. Now, let's get back to the show.
G'day, welcome back to True Blue. Today, I'm joined by a special guest who did a lot of his time, started his time in the Army Reserve and then wanted a bit more action and did a massive jump to the best Tier 1 Special Forces unit in Australia. And it was a very big jump from reserves, and he served for 17 years. Is that right, Ryan? 17 years in Special Forces?
About 12 years in
12.
there, so it's about 18 years all up. Yeah.
18 years all up. So,
Yeah.
And you've just heard him. So, Ryan Wilson, mate, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Mate, it's a privilege to have you on. So, mate, as I said, started in Army Reserve, and we're going to get to the SAS a little bit down the track. But let's go back to a young Ryan, mate. Talk me through you growing up. Were you the wild child, or talk me through your childhood?
Well, it depends who you ask, I guess. But look, I'm a WA boy. I grew up in a small country town south of Perth called Waroona. Very small town, only a couple of thousand people, and I don't think it's grown much since I was there either at the moment. But so I spent most of my all my childhood there till I was about 17 before I moved to Perth to go to uni. But yeah, I went to the local school there where that went to about year 10. And then because I wanted to do year 11 and 12 TE, or I don't know what they call it now, but the studies you have to do to get into university, I had to go to Pinjarra Senior High School, which was the next town sort of north of Waroona. So I went there for a couple of years as well.
So you were pretty good at school, mate. And what were you good at sport? And do you have any brothers and sisters?
Well, I have two older sisters, and we've always been a fairly active sporting family. We're all involved in sports, and I guess as a country town, that's pretty much what you do. You know, growing up is, you play footy, you play and then when footy's not on, you're playing basketball and then cricket, and there's just always some sort of sport that you're involved in, team sport. So did that since I was about 8 years old, just switching between all different sports within the community.
And for you, mate, what did you want to? You said you wanted to go to uni. What was your interest in study of going to university?
Yeah, and to answer your first question about was I good at school? No, I wasn't actually. I'm definitely not one of those naturally gifted students. I was always in trouble, especially up to about year 10, always, getting in trouble and suspended and doing all those things you do as a young lad. I guess it was when I realised, all right, I need to work out what I want to do with my life. A lot of my mates ended up getting apprenticeships as a mechanic or, working out at Alcoa, using their hands and very hands-on type jobs. And I was absolutely useless at that as well. Couldn't fix a push bike, let alone a car. So, those type of hands-on, I guess, apprenticeship style careers, I didn't think were for me. And that's when I started getting interested in the Army. and realized, I wanted to join the army in some sort of aspect. And back then, a lot of the recruiters and a lot of the information I got, it all led to joining as an officer. That was all the recommendation I got. So I realized I had to do TE and have good grades and go to uni and do all that to become an officer in the army. So I started to apply myself. It's probably from year 11 and 12 is when I actually started to apply myself. I think the teachers I had in Pinjarra would have a much different memory of me as a student as the teachers I had in Waroona. So, but no, and I just I didn't find the study to be that difficult. I just found it was a lot of time and a lot of effort. And as long as, and that's where I guess I learned you put in the effort, you get the rewards. So I got decent rewards. I never considered myself as a naturally smart type person, but I just applied myself to the subjects and was able to get good enough grades to get accepted to university. Yeah.
And what did you study at uni, mate?
So, it's a funny thing being expected to know what you want to do for the rest of your life at 17 years old and then go study it at university, right? I really had no idea, but I was interested in politics and, the military and all that. So I did a political science. I did a triple major, a political science, Asian studies, and a security and counterterrorism studies. So did 3 majors in the 1 degree there. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So testing yourself, mate. Like three. Yeah. Right. 3 majors. Yeah. Far out. Yeah. Most people do 1, not 3. Yeah. Right. And for you, you mentioned the military was in your mind from a young age. Did you have any family members that had served before you, or are you the first?
No family member that served as a profession, I suppose, as a career. Like everyone in Australia, I guess we had my, granddad, great granddad in World War One, and World War Two, great uncles, and a lot of family members that served through the big wars. But no direct family member that sort of served as a career in the military. Yeah.
For you and for all of us, especially, we remember the day 9/11, mate. It changed the world. Where were you on that day? And did you think that, 10 years later, you would be serving in Afghanistan fighting the war on terrorism?
No, I did. So I do remember it because I think everyone remembers where they were when that happened. I was about 15 years old, I think. I was playing football not at that time, but during that time, I was playing football for the local footy club, the league team. I was playing, as a young fella, but doing pretty well. So I was at I was at the association vote count, like award night, I remember, as a 15-year-old. And back then, I guess it was a bit easier to have a few drinks on the side when you're a young fella, part of a footy club. So I was having a few drinks as well. And then I got home after that night and the TV was on and started watching, and that's when it all unfolded, and I saw what was happening, and I just sat there and watched it all night and couldn't believe what I was seeing. But yeah, I really didn't know. I mean, it sparked something inside you. I think it sparked something inside everyone, but especially people who have that sense of duty and that wanting to serve, and just really cemented what I wanted to do with my life. Yeah.
And then in 2002, mate, you actually you followed through with that, and you actually joined the Army Reserve. And talk me through the process back then, mate, because the internet was in its early days, and so how'd you join up?
You make me sound so old, mate. I don't know. But no, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of phone calls and a lot of things over the phone back then, I think. But yeah, it was, I joined the Army Reserve as opposed to the regular Army at the time. Now that was because previously to that, I'd actually applied for ADFA to go and do my studies at the Defence Force Academy and become an officer and everything like that. And I'll say luckily, and thank God, because I actually really enjoyed being a soldier as opposed to an officer. And I can't imagine what kind of person I would have turned into if I went through ADFA and RMC. But anyway, I I I got rejected to go to ADFA for whatever reason, didn't get through the final round, and then was recommended to join the Army Reserve, do university back here in Perth, and then a few years in the Army Reserve, and then reapply. So I took their advice and I joined the Army Reserve while I was at university, and it was then when I realised I got to learn more about the military and the army and the structure and who does what, and I I really, that's when I realized I want to be a soldier, not an officer. Mm.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that, mate. Are you looking back now? Are you glad, as you said, you you didn't go down the officer path?
Look, I mean, what happened happened, and it all happens for a reason, I suppose. Like I mean, sometimes I think, oh, if I went the officer path, where would I be now? It might be more financially set up, but I had an amazing career and was able to do what I was able to do because of being a soldier, and I think I wouldn't change it. Yeah, I have no regrets. Yeah.
Absolutely, and we'll get into that, mate, later on in the podcast. And so, what do you remember of your time at Kapooka, mate? Because I know most people, most veterans I've spoken to, say that it's the shock and awe. And what was it like for you when you got to Kapooka?
Yeah, definitely. There's a shock and awe. There's just this sense of dread the whole time leading up to it, and anxiety, I suppose. I mean, again, as a kid, I was 18 years old. I think I just turned 18. And so not really knowing what to expect other than what you see on TV and reading books. And yeah, I mean, it's a long time ago now, but I just remember that sense of dread and anxiety, especially on the bus out there. I felt like it was the longest bus trip ever, and then just being thrown into it, not knowing anything. So,
So with that, because you're in Perth, did you have they flew you over and then the bus? Is that how it
yeah,
works?
yeah, flew over, landed. Oh, geez, I don't know where, probably Sydney or something. Can't remember now. And then yeah, it'll be a long bus ride out to Wagga, but yeah.
Yeah, right. And was that 13 weeks you did out there, or?
Luckily, back then it was 6 weeks
Oh,
for
right.
everyone. There was 6 weeks for regs, for ARA, for reserves, for anyone. Back then they were trying to I guess, make it easier bridge the gap between reserves and regs. And so they had this 6 week Kapooka thing, which I was really grateful for because I only had to go there for 6 weeks. But yeah, that was the same for if you joined ARA or whatever, it was just always 6 weeks. Yeah.
And then you actually, because I know some of the guys I've had on before, they didn't go to Singleton. They'd go back to their unit and finish their training. But you actually went to Singleton, and mate, I've heard so much about Singleton that if you thought Kapooka was a shock, Singleton's a whole nother beast. What was that like, mate, getting to Singleton?
Yeah, yeah. So again, yeah, you could go back to the reserve unit and do your IETs, your infantry training, broken up into blocks, run locally. But I've always had this desire or this something about me where I wanted to always do the hardest or the best option that was available. So I said, you know what, I want to do the 13-week Singleton course, get it all out of the way in one block. And, I want to see if I can actually, I'm good enough to finish the course. So yeah, and that was again, yeah, a big shock. Again, I was only young, same age, probably 18, 19, something, 18. There was a bunch of, I think there was 5 reservists that started the course, but I think I was the only one that finished it. But ended up becoming good mates with a lot of the regs, the ARA guys who went on. It was definitely looked at differently being a reservist by the instructors and things like that. But I think I was pretty young and dumb back then, too ignorant to really work out, understand what they were going on about or anything. So I always I did all that stuff when I was young and dumb because I just got through it all without thinking about it too much. But so I ended up being good mates with a lot of the guys, and funny enough, a high number of the blokes I did Singleton with ended up in the regiment as well. So
All right. Yeah,
ended up
okay.
crossing paths with maybe 5 or 6 of them from our platoon in Singleton within the regiment. Yeah, within the regiment. So yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Because I know some of the veterans I've had on that have said they didn't do singleton, and then when they got to the battalions, that it was like they were known that they didn't do singleton, and it's it's one of those
Oh
things.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
You wouldn't want to go reserve, do your training, then go to an ARA battalion without doing because
yeah.
yeah, Singleton is kind of like a rite of passage, I suppose, and I learned a lot of good soldiering skills there from a lot of good experienced people and made some good mates. So
Mm.
no, I don't regret it. But yeah, it was tough.
So
Yeah.
with that, do you then like where do you post in because you're a reserve, you're not the regular army, you're a reservist. Where do you post into? Do you post back to a regiment back in Perth or
Yeah, I posted back to 16 Battalion Royal West Australian Regiment back here in Perth. And lucky enough, well, we immediately went to Rifle Company Butterworth. So I went from 3 months in Singleton, came back, and then did I think 3 or 4 months full-time service over in Butterworth. So yeah.
and what was that like, mate? Like yeah, straight into it and back and over to Butterworth. What was that
Yeah,
like?
yeah, that was an eye opener for a young lad as well. First time sort of overseas in Asia, and yeah, it was definitely an eye opener. It was it was good fun. There was some really hard parts, especially the jungle. I think that was the first time I'd been in a real jungle and just hated it, and have never really liked being in the jungle. So that's why I'm glad I was, in the Afghanistan war rather than Vietnam war, because I just don't think I would have survived Vietnam. But the jungle was just, it's hard enough living in the jungle, everything out there trying to kill you, let alone, some enemy trying to kill you as well. So
Mm.
a lot of respect for the guys who spend a lot of time in the jungle. I absolutely hate it. But
And
yeah,
this
so, yeah.
Yeah, crazy, like crazy. Everyone that I've had on who went to Butterworth, mate, said the same thing. It was hot and the jungle's shit. And
Yeah.
yeah, so
Oh,
yeah,
mate.
absolutely. The jungle, everything wants to kill you, mate.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So,
it's just hard to live in the jungle, let alone, try and survive as well. But yeah, so no, it was interesting. It was a great trip. Met a lot of really good lifelong friends on that trip. Yeah, it was great.
so you come back from that, and I want to talk about an incident, mate, that happened that you were part of, and you were on the ground that really had an effect on you. Was the 2006 earthquake? Can you share with us what it was like on the ground and being involved in that earthquake?
Sure. So just to put it in context, I was over in Indonesia for about a year, just with a part of my degree out of Murdoch University, it is actually some postgrad stuff as well. But I was actually on exchange to a university in Yogyakarta, basically to learn how to speak Bahasa, but I was on exchange there anyway. So I'd taken some time off, I guess, the Army Reserve, and thought, I wanted to do this. I want to learn how to speak Bahasa. I want to live a considerable amount of time in an Asian country. So I was in Central Java, in Yogyakarta, and yeah, it was great. It was like, again, young fella, 20 years old or something. There was a few other Aussies there, but just, living the university life over there. And I remember there's a big volcano, Mount Merapi, which is right next to Yogyakarta, and that was kind of active, always smoking during that time. So I do remember in the morning, it was about 6 a.m. And yeah, I would say I was slightly hungover that morning. And yeah, the world just erupted, started shaking, just everything. It was, it went on for, it felt like forever. I ran outside, and because I thought I was on the bottom floor of like a two-story villa thing. And then all the tiles started flying off the roof into the courtyard and stuff. So eventually it stopped, and I assumed it was Mount Merapi erupting, but no, yeah, it was an earthquake off the coast, quite a significant one. So yeah, I actually went back to bed because I was pretty hungover, but and a mate of mine came around and was like, "Oh my God, let's go check it out. Like, let's have a look at." So I was like, "Okay." So we got on our little motorbikes and so had a look at all the damage, and yeah, it was incredible. I think about 6,000 people died in those in that earthquake. There was mass panic within the city itself because this event had occurred not long after the Thailand tsunami, the earthquake off the coast there. So a lot of people were expecting a sort of tsunami, even though we were inland somewhat. There was a lot of panic, people on the road just grabbing what they could, suitcases and that, and just running, getting out of town, getting to high ground, just trying to get clear of the city. But there wasn't any tsunami or anything like that. But the damage was quite major. A lot of the city had been flattened, and a lot of people killed. And we were the first. Well, we were on the ground. There was a bunch of us, part of the Teachers program, which is an exchange program. So there's a bunch of foreigners, mostly Australians there. So we all come together and sort of worked out what could we do to help. Started coordinating, working with government officials in sort of getting food out to places or helping in hospitals. I had done like a CFA course with the reserves. So I was at a hospital helping, do all sorts of things from cannulations and everything, and just moving people around. But it was a mass casualty sort of event. There's just casualties everywhere. So it was really, I think, for a young person, and something that I'll always remember and always has had a large impact on my life. So we continued to help for as long as we could until a lot of the NGOs and government support sort of started coming in to help rebuild and distribute aid and everything like that. But it was a pretty gruesome sight.
And for you, did you like at that point and later on, is that for you where you got an appreciation to knowledge is more like, if you know more, like especially first aid wise, moving forward throughout your career, of how important it is to know first aid?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think so. I mean, there was, a lot of incidents there. I did what I could. I tried to help people, but some people just, the damage was too much. But it was definitely something that stuck with me for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, definitely, mate. It's hard not to, yeah, absolutely hard not to. And at the same time, as you said, being hungover, it's like, but still scary, mate. Regardless whether you're hungover, it's still a scary situation to be in.
Yeah, for sure. Look, definitely was. I always tell that joke that the sort of hungover, and I was, I was a young fella over there having a good time, but but it definitely it soaked me up pretty quick when I got out and seen the damage and seen what had actually happened. So yeah.
Yeah, sort of a surreal moment for you, mate, to be.
Oh, mate, yeah.
Is this actually happening? Like I'm supposed to be over here just studying, and now this earthquake's happened, and so you help out, and then you come back home, and then in 2007, mate, you deploy to the Solomon Islands. What was that like, mate? And as you say, like you're getting trips, mate, which is not a lot of reservists get. So what was that like?
Yeah, and that was good. I think at that time in the reserves, there was a lot of trips going around because I think the regular army was so busy with everything. So they were, especially over the Christmas period and that, they were handing those trips out to reserve units. So we went to Solomon Islands on Op Anode for about 6 months or something. I think 5, 6 months, can't remember, but over the Christmas period there. And that was, again, another eye-opening, another experience, another, something very different that I hadn't been exposed to before.
And then, mate, this is where, as I said, that the special forces comes into your mind, and like 2008, mate, you decide to go on selection, and you don't just, and that's a massive jump, mate. That's like going from reservist to SAS. That's a huge like jump. And how did you physically and mentally prepare? And was there some eyebrows raised when you said, I'm going to go for the SAS?
Oh, for sure. I think there was a lot of people who, like naysayers, but I think just because they're probably not game enough to do it themselves. But look, I trained all through Solomon Islands as well, and I had my best mate Tony Yates, and He was over there with me in Solomons, and we both trained together and both planned to do selection together and everything. So having that good close mate to train and motivate you as well had really helped. I was just young. I keep saying I'm young and dumb. I just was like, why not? Why? It's what I wanted to do. I didn't really have an interest in going to a battalion or in the regular army per se. I thought I'll do this. If I don't get in there, then I'll pursue another career, probably outside the military. So it was either SAS or nothing to me. So this made perfect sense. So yeah, I just followed all the training program that they provided to a T. Mentally, it's difficult to mentally prepare for selection. I think, you can talk to a lot of people and get an idea, but, it's something that you need to experience and mentally, you can either recover from failure and keep moving on, or you can't. So again, I just think during being young and dumb got me through selection as well. So
And
yeah.
that's a really good point, mate, that you touch on, because sometimes advice, it's all well intended, but it gets in your head and then you get overcrowded and you psych yourself out of doing something. And so, as you say, it's probably a good thing that you didn't you just got to go through the motions yourself. And so what was it like, mate, when you first got there, and how many started and how many finished?
Yeah, so it was daunting when I first got there. I remember the first day as well when we were in the hangar and they strip you off naked, and then there's 100, I think 160 people started, something like that. And there's some really big units in there and muscles on muscles and everything. And I was just like, what the fuck have I got myself into? Like, what am I doing? But funny enough, a lot of those big guys were the first ones to go. But everyone's there. There wasn't really a point where I thought anyone was judged me for being a reservist or as the other candidates. I mean, I think everyone was there just wanted to get through, and you have to work together, and you they judge you on what your actions rather than
Mm.
your history. So everyone started from zero. It was like that in the hangar where we were stripped naked, and then so we had to put one sock on, pants, jocks, everything one at a time. That was it. You put everyone on a level playing field, and then that was it. Didn't matter whether you were a sergeant in the commandos, which we had a few of those, or a private in the 16 Battalion Reserve Unit, which was me. Like, everyone was on an equal playing field, and it just didn't really matter where you're from.
And for you, mate, look, I've spoken to a lot of guys from the regiment now, both to commando and also SASR. And for you, what was the hardest part of selection? Was it what was the hardest part for you looking back now?
Look, it's the entire course is physically demanding, and the longer it goes, the more mentally demanding it gets. But the hardest, you don't, no sleep, no food, just constant activities for 4 days straight. Funny enough, it's the section of the selection where we get the least people withdraw, because I think you get to that point, you're so close, you push through and you keep going. But I still think it is by far probably the hardest part. Yeah. I mean, the
Uh,
whole thing is challenging. Yeah.
Oh, of course. And for you, mate, was there thoughts that you went, "Oh, I'm cooked. I can't keep going," or did you just go, "Nah, I've just got to keep pushing one foot in front of the other."
Yeah, look, to be honest, I don't ever really remember thinking, oh, I can't keep going anymore. I do remember thinking all the time that, oh, I'm not gonna get selected. I'm not good enough. Because that's what the instructors do. They make you feel like you're the worst soldier in the world and see how you handle it. And yeah, I was convinced. I was like, oh, yeah, no, there's no way I'm going to be selected. But, I'm here. I want to finish it. That's my goal. So let's finish it.
And
Yeah.
as you say, mate, that's still an accomplishment to finish selection. Even if you don't get picked up, to finish selection is a massive achievement. And how much weight did you lose, mate, in that in that 21
Uh,
days?
yeah, 15 kilos, I think, in 21 days. Yeah.
Wow. Yep. So you were just a skeleton, mate.
Yeah, I had a six pack for the first time. It was great, but it didn't last long.
So, mate, you get through and you're told you're being selected to go on the reinforcement cycle. What was that feeling like? Was that a sense of, because I've spoken to a lot of guys that have said selection is just that first little peak in the mountain.
Yeah.
It means nothing. So what was that like? And then obviously you get focused to go on the reinforcement cycle.
Yeah, correct. I would agree with that. Look, it was great feeling to finish selection. I was more surprised as well that I was in the group that got selected, you know, and then the next day you start reinforcement cycle. There's no real time to sort of rest on your laurels and be like, okay, like, and then reinforcement cycle, you soon realize is a lot harder in terms of mentally and skills based sort of activities. And if you don't meet the standard, you get RTU'd or sent back to your unit. So, and that goes for 18 months. So that's 18 months of mental stress and anxiety the entire time where you could be sent home at any time. That was really tough, challenging. Yeah.
And at that point too, mate, Afghanistan's in full swing. Are you guys on the Rio? Are you guys understanding that as soon as you guys, if you pass the Rio cycle, you're getting ready to go to war? Is that what was the thoughts like you guys thought that at the time?
Yeah, for sure. We knew what was happening. And there wouldn't have been a person there that wouldn't have volunteered or wouldn't have. We would just stepped over each other to try and get on the next trip. So yeah, because that's why we were there. That's what we were there for. Yeah.
Mm. And for you, you go on Rio cycle, mate. And was there anything, as you said, you just mentioned, you alluded to that it's stressful for 18 months, but was there anything that you struggled with in that looking back now?
Yeah, oh, for sure. I think I struggled on most of the courses, to be honest. I often wonder how I got through, but yeah, there were some points where, like, even some skills-based stuff, shooting, pistol shooting stuff, I never really been great at. The patrol course itself was incredibly challenging, and you just never. I never felt like, oh man, I'm killing this. Like I'm a great soldier. I just felt like I was surviving the whole 18 months. Like just day by day. Just if I'm here tomorrow, like today, I survived today. I come back tomorrow and I'll focus on tomorrow. So, I was just taking it day by day, out like hour by hour, just trying to get through. And you know what, to be honest, I've thought a lot about this and about the way, the culture and the way that it was sort of set up for us. It was very much a survival culture in that, failure was not really accepted and wasn't seen as a learning point to a degree. It was seen as, oh, you're not good, you're useless, fail too many times, you're out. So personally, I was like, okay, that means I can't fail. That means I don't want to put myself in a position where I might fail. So naturally, I am not pushing myself to be the best person or best soldier I could be. I'm trying to stay within the limits, get done what needs to be done, but at the same time, not pushing myself to a point where I could possibly fail. So, and that mentality carried through with me through my whole career, to be honest, probably right up until the end where I was more in a leadership position. But and I do think I starved myself of a little bit of career progression and a bit of everything because not achieving what I probably could have in the regiment because I had that survival mentality and that failure is not an acceptable
Mm.
outcome.
I know, but I think, mate, in the scheme of things, I think that's a natural thought and a natural reaction because a lot of the guys I've spoken to, it's the same thing that you've said as well, is that it is that just survival, like hang in
Mm.
there, keep surviving, keep going, and that the unit does it so well because it is that thing of no one is a super soldier. That you are all. That's the best thing about you're all very humble human beings. That you're doing the job for the love of doing the job, and that's where the regiment is so good at selecting the right people for the regiment.
Yeah, definitely. I think they do it a lot better now. But I mean, I've seen the standard of the guys coming off Rio, especially towards the end of my career, and the guys were much more confident, much more capable, and you would expect that as we progress and evolve the training and everything. But it took me. It was a bit different, but I went to a squadron where they just rotated off a trip and of Afghanistan. So I was a rookie. I didn't open my mouth until for a couple of years, where until I proved myself overseas.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was very much that kind of culture. Yeah.
And what was it like, mate, after 18 months, blood, sweat, tears, to finally receive that Sandy beret, mate? And did you have your family come over and see you be presented with your beret?
Yeah, yeah. So my family was there. Look, great feeling, great. Like, that's the ultimate why you do it, a lot of it. But to be honest, again, it just it we got their berets, and then the CO was kind of like, "Yep, well done, congrats. All right, now put that in your top shelf and get to work." Like, it was right now the work starts. And to be honest, I never really looked at that thing for a long time. I didn't use it, didn't wear it. It soon loses its you know, I don't know, appeal. Yeah.
It's funny, mate, because you've said that, and so many others have said exactly the same thing. It's like, yeah, we never wore it. Like you
Yeah.
only wore it if to funerals or
Yeah.
award ceremonies or things like that. That it was, you're so much build up to see a beret and get presented it, but then it's, as most of the guys said, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, now we got a job to do, and we've got to build a career and a reputation here. And for you, what squadron did you get put in when you passed your Rio cycle?
Yeah, I went to three squadron, so third herd. Mm.
So what was that like, mate? Because, you've just learned so much on that, the last 18 months. And as you said, the guys had just come off a trip. Are you now, as you say, the new guy, and are you just taking in everything that they're teaching you, or what's happening?
For sure. You get to back then, so you got to a certain point at Rio, especially with a lot of your CQB, close quarter battle, and everything, tactics and that. But every troop and every squadron was slightly different in the way they operated and did things. So, you got to a squadron and then you just sort of, you know, shut your mouth and just listened to everything that was going on and did what you were told. But yeah, it was again another daunting experience because I remember the first time I went into the troop office and I was with K Troop and they were all there and there's guys with their arms and like one guy had an arm in a sling because he'd been shot and other dudes injured and you heard all the stories and that and it's just like you again I was just like what am I doing here like I starting again now and then had to learn everything the way the squadron operated and then prove myself I guess to the operators there.
And for you, what was your specialty, mate? What did you specialize in?
To start with, I did a sniper course, so I was a sniper. Hmm.
And did you like, mate, jumping out of planes? Because I know most people that I've spoken to either love it or hate it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Like the army has a really good way of taking the fun out of everything, But no, it was great. I love being in a free fall troop. Yeah, but jumping out of a plane, 25,000 feet with pack and O2 and at night, and yeah, it's nerve-wracking, and a lot of things can go wrong.
Mm.
But really, really enjoyed it. Yeah.
And for you, mate, you said, you specialized as a sniper. What was that like, mate? Because I've know a lot of the guys and recently, well, this podcast will come out a little bit later, but I recently did a podcast with Doug Sheridan and he had his snipers and that was what he specialized in. And what was that like doing the sniper course?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I never chose to be a sniper. Never put my hand up to be a sniper. But as a rookie in the squadron, when they said there's a sniper course starting Monday, you three rookies are on it. So, yeah, no worries. That's yep, cool. So we did, and look, I was a horrible sniper. I'm not gonna lie. I got through. The field craft is hard, right? I learned a lot about field craft and about the stalking and everything like that, and shooting. The shooting's probably the easier part, but yeah, never really was a big gun nut or big, what a lot of snipers are, but ended up enjoying it. Ended up, doing some of those sort of roles overseas as well. Got a few good trips, as a sniper. I spent a month in Canada in the Rocky Mountains with JDF2 doing high angle sniping in the Rockies. So, I really enjoyed that. So there was a lot of good opportunities. And I actually enjoyed being a sniper in the end,
Mm.
but no, it wasn't something that I set out to do. Mm.
It's funny because a lot of the guys I've had on too, mate, have said the same thing. They never wanted it. It was sort of pushed on them, but then when they did it, they actually did enjoy, once they did get good at the craft. And because you've got to do like it's not what you see in the movies, is it, mate? Like you see, oh, it's just I'll take the shot here, and there's a lot of calculation, wind, like everything plays a factor, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot to it. And I mean, it's changed so much now. I think they've come leaps and bounds now, what the good boys are doing.
Mm.
But yeah, back then as well, yeah, there's a lot to it, and it was hard. I found it quite difficult, especially reading the wind, at the other end and judging distance and everything like that. We had to do it all without any aids with it. So, and you had to get within 10% of sort of the actual range and everything like that. And yeah, it was challenging, but got through it. I think lent on a couple of good mates of mine who helped me get through as well. One was a sniper in the battalions as well, so he was quite experienced in that. Yeah, so he helped me get through as well. Mm.
And then, mate, I want to talk about your first trip to Afghanistan in 2011. And as you said, you went to Butterworth, you've then gone to the Solis, but this is the grand final. Like you're going into a war zone. What was that like? And talk me through your first trip.
Yeah, you're right. It is like the grand final, I suppose, and it was, I always equate going to Afghanistan, if you put it in a sporting context, it's like training all the time and then finally get to play a game. So now we'd been training, and now now I finally get to play the game. So yeah, look, there was a lot of build up to it, but we had some experienced leaders, patrol commanders, 2ICs, and through the troop, and they've been doing a lot of trips. So, but it's a good lead up, and then yeah, again, just another one of those points where it's daunting, but you just got to face it head on and trust that your training will kick in and get you through what's coming ahead. But I really didn't know what to expect on that first trip. Yeah.
And what was it like, mate? Like if you could go back, like, and I know I know a lot's happened in your life since then, but what was it like stepping outside that wire, and what was going through your mind the first time that you did that?
Yeah, there was a lot going through my head the first job outside the wire. I didn't know whether we were going to run into like 30 armed Taliban or whether, what. I just had no idea, but I just was trying to, I didn't really understand the big picture of what was happening in Afghanistan either at that point, I don't think. So I was just trying to focus on where I fit into the team and what I needed to do, and just relied on my training and listened to my, patrol commander and 2IC who were really good, become lifelong friends. And yeah, that first job, nothing happened. But I think that was probably when my adrenaline was peaking the most, because I really didn't know what was going to happen or what to expect. But and then crazy enough, on the second job, I ended up in a contact and ended up bagging the the HVT, the high value target that we were chasing, and his bodyguard on the second ever job that I was outside the wire, which was, it was pretty unique for a rookie to get that.
Mm.
Um, so that kind of helped my career, I suppose, because I don't know, I think I had a lot of naysayers there being an ex-reservist. I'd had a few alcohol related incidents before that. I was always a bit loose on the cans. So there was a lot of question marks around my name, I think. So yeah, that helped me get through a bit, I think, because I sort of proved myself. Yeah.
And with that too, mate, was like because 2011, 2012, the war's like it's like it's going nuts. Like we're losing guys, not just from SF, we're losing guys in the regular army as well. And is that where in 2011 where you guys went away from the nighttime raids and was starting to do a lot more daylight raids at that point?
Yeah, look, I think it had progressed from the early part of the war was a lot of long range patrolling, vehicle mounted stuff. By the time I got to Afghanistan in that 2011, 2013, 14 period, it had shifted to more of a time sensitive targeting role where we were enabled by Hilo assets or US assets. So we were able to get to more areas quickly and able to get the Taliban by surprise, I suppose. And so naturally, I think it became a lot more kinetic in those years in the later part of the war. Probably around 2011, 12 was probably the height, 13. But in terms of the day and night time, yes, like we did a few nighttime raids during my entire career and experiences in Afghanistan. I can probably count them on one hand,
Mm.
whereas I've done hundreds of daytime raids. And that was directed from above, but they didn't want us doing nighttime raids. For what reason, I still don't really understand nor comprehend. Every other tier one allied unit was doing nothing but nighttime raids because they use the advantage of their night vision, which means less risk for the operators involved.
Mm.
However, we were directed to do them during the daytime from the government.
I
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off, mate. I recently had Wayne Weeks on the
Mm.
podcast, and he gave an absolutely amazing, basically brief summary of what why that was the case, and that you guys just took it on the chin, hearts and minds of, for the Afghan people, that, it doesn't matter that you risked like it's heightened risk to you guys doing daylight raids. And as you said, you can count how many times you did nighttime raids, which, mate, that's just alarming that you can count how many you did. And we're going to get to your other deployments later. It's just, to think that we as as we bowed down, and we're not going to get into the political
Mm.
side of things, but mate, for you guys to do what you did, mate, we as Australian people take our hats off to you, because it's just unbelievable what you guys did.
No, and Wayne Weeksy, he was the sergeant major on that 2011 trip. So yeah, I had a lot to do with Wayne. Yeah, and he's the ultimate soldier. He was I learned so much from him. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Go back and listen to episode 117, and Wayne gives as I said, it gives a summary of how the whole war changed. And mate, next weekend, I'm actually catching up with one of your former COs actually, and recording his podcast. So yeah, so
Nice.
that will be a whole aspect of it's good to capture the RSM's perspective, and it'll be good to capture one of your former COs, which I'll talk to you about off air. So
Okay.
because I'm gonna keep that one under wraps. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no dramas. Yeah.
So mate, how long was that first deployment over to Afghanistan?
Oh, look, usually those SOT-G or Special Operation Task Group rotations were short, like 4 to 5 months, no more than sort of 5 months, I think, because they were so intense and kinetic. And so they were short rotations, and then we would go home, rest for a month, do another month lead up, and probably back in country 3 or 4 months later. Yeah.
And for you, looking back now, like as you said, you got in second patrol, you got out and you got the high value target and his bodyguard. And that gave you, a bit of confidence. Yes, the training has paid off. And did you then come back like, and you had a pretty kinetic first trip? Did you come back and start to feel, okay, I am starting to feel that I belong over here, or what was, or you never really felt that?
Funny enough, no, never really. Never, always struggled with that imposter syndrome. And don't get me wrong, I think a degree of imposter syndrome is normal and is probably somewhat healthy. It keeps you, as long as it doesn't affect your confidence, but it prevents you from becoming arrogant.
Mm,
But I do think I struggled with that a lot through my whole career, where I don't think I ever felt like, I sort of deserved to be there or had proven myself or, yeah, it was tough. I guess that's something I've struggled with self-doubt and dealing with failure. And, I've done a lot of self-reflection since. I think it would be a different story now, knowing what I know.
mm.
But, but at the time, yeah, really didn't really feel like I, fully settled or anything. And I guess that does keep you on your toes and keeps you, training hard, keeps you, not getting complacent or comfortable, and letting your skills lapse, I suppose.
And because how old are you at that point, mate?
Well, I did selection, 2008, I was 23. So, 2009, so like, yeah, 26, something like that.
So yeah, you're still, mate, you're still growing up as a man, like
Yeah,
like, and the
yeah, I was
brain,
young.
yeah,
Yeah.
like they don't say like for males, the brain, you don't stop developing, material wise until your late 20s. So, you're doing things, mate, that you're still a kid. Like,
Mm,
you're in your 20s, but you're not a kid, but you are still maturing. And of course, like imposter syndrome, we all have it, and it's a really good thing. I think it's a healthy thing to have going through life because it still makes you want to feel better and keep
mm.
striving to be better.
Yeah, definitely. Mm.
So you come back, and then, mate, you don't get much rest. You deploy again in 2012, and talk me through this trip because this one was a little bit different.
Yeah, a bit longer. I think this one was about 8 months or something, but because I was in more of a support role, so less kinetic, but spending a bit of time up, sort of liaising with a lot of our partnering forces and our allied forces out of Kabul. We spent most of the time in Kabul, which again, I think I got a bigger picture of the entire strategy well, I use that term loosely for the war because I don't think there was one, but I guess the overall big picture of what was happening in Afghanistan and who was where and what was going on. So it was quite eye-opening, working out of ISAF headquarters and everything like that. I spent a bit of time, still spent a bit of time out of TK and down in Kandahar as well. Mm.
And on this trip, mate, the regiment loses another bloke, an absolute icon of the regiment, and I'm really good friends with the fallen soldier's sister, really close friends with her, and Blaine Diddams, mate. And how is that you were, as you say, you're not in TK, you're
Mm.
separated, but it's still one of the guys from the regiment?
Oh, it's devastating, mate. Yeah, like we all knew Blaine, and he was larger than life type guy. Yeah, he'd been played a big impact, big role in through our training. He was a instructor on our reinforcement cycle, and yeah, he was just a big part of 3 Squadron. He was, a big personality. Yeah, so it was devastating, and I mean, I wasn't in TK, I wasn't on the job, and that again is like I had to deal with sort of the guilt of not being part of the crew, not being there. These boys come back and they'd experienced that and kind of felt I didn't want to sort of step on their toes or anything, but we were all part of the same unit and everything, but I wasn't there, yeah, when it happened. Mm.
Mm. And go back and read. Blaine was awarded a posthumous Medal for Gallantry, and his final words were on me. And just a and just a very sad day. And I recently interviewed Mark Donaldson's wife, Emma, and
Yeah.
she was really close with Blaine and Blaine's wife, TA. So, and
Mm.
she spoke about that. Her podcast is about to come out. So, yeah, it was a very sad day. And also, mate, one of the dogs was also lost that day as well, and which you would go into and work with the dogs. So,
Mm.
yeah, Mark's best mate was killed.
Yeah.
I think Devil, was it Devil? I think it was Devil.
Yeah, I think that they lost a couple of dogs on that trip, Devil and Quake.
Yeah.
Um, I think it might have been Quake. I'm not sure, sorry.
Yeah. No, no, no.
Job, but yeah, they lost two dogs on that trip.
Mm,
Look, and that job was the last job 3 Squadron ever did in Afghanistan. Yeah.
yeah. And, hours from coming home. So it's, yeah,
Yeah.
just such a tragedy, mate. But, and, lest we forget, and it's because of doing these podcasts, mate, to remember, Blaine and all the guys that were lost over, in Afghanistan and in training. And, there's 103,000 names on the walls down in Canberra, mate. So, and this is why we do these podcasts, so to remember them. So, mate, that happens, and then so did you get Rockall on that one, or you can
I
remember?
did. I did. I got Rockall because it was a long trip. Yeah.
And what did you do, mate? Did you go over to Europe, or where did you go?
I went to the US. Time I had interest in the US and that. And I remember I went on my own, but I went to Vegas and San Diego and a few other places there. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that would have been interesting,
Mm.
mate. Told old Las Vegas, mate.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Yeah, going from flying out, Kabul and then land, I go through UAE, go through Dubai, but then into Vegas, and you're like, a couple of days ago I was in the middle of Kabul, but now I'm, out here at some casino. But yeah,
And
that was
and
good.
and as you say, mate, like, and that's a really good point that you just touched on is. Like you're heightened because you're in Kabul. Kabul wasn't a safe, just because you weren't in TK, you were in Kabul. And this is what I want to highlight to the non-military listeners. And I've done a lot of these podcasts now, so I understand it that Kabul, it wasn't a safe place either. Like you still had suicide bombers, so mate, I understand that you were heightened that, hey, a couple of days ago I'm in Kabul looking over my shoulder, looking at my arcs, and then I'm over in America now. Mate, that is, how did, like, as you say, that is a surreal thing, isn't it?
It is surreal, but yeah, I don't know. You just sort of deal with it, I guess. And but it just hits you sometimes when you're sitting at a bar and you're like, where am I? What's going like, how did this happen? But you just kind of deal with it. And I guess that's the whole point of this, the rock or the leave is to try and unwind a bit. But yeah, really difficult to do in just a couple of weeks. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't complaining. Free trip to the US.
Yeah, and
I jumped on that. Hmm.
because you're, as you say, mate, you're still thinking of the job, aren't you? Like you're still, even though you're off, you're still thinking of the other guys that are in country.
Oh, correct. Yeah, because we had to rotate out individually, so the rest of the team's all still there while each of us took our time off. Yeah,
So that you come back from that long trip, mate, and then what's happening when you get back to Perth?
I think I ended up just going on a few more courses. That was the thing. You're either sort of on leave or on a course or on lead up training to go back over. So yeah, I spent a lot of time over on the East Coast doing training and that. Yeah, and then I was lucky enough to get that last trip as well. So
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, mate, because Afghanistan 2013 is starting to wind down for special forces. What was that like? Because you'd done 2011, then 2012, different. First trip was kinetic, second trip not as kinetic. What was the third trip like?
so it was what they called like a winter trip. So it was over like I think we got there November, December time, and then over the Christmas period, and probably till March or something like that until the first sort of fighting season trip arrived. So traditionally that was just kind of a more of a low key, not very kinetic kind of tour. But for this trip, they actually gave it back, and it was usually done by commandos or the one commando guys and that. And because it was winter, it was sort of not seen as the fighting season and wasn't very kinetic because it was just too cold for everyone outside. But this trip, they decided to give it back to the SAS, and we formed a sort of a mixed unit, and we called it Zulu Troop and Z Troop, from guys from all different squadrons. And I was lucky enough to get on that, and it was a really good bunch of blokes, really good guys. And we got there and we decided we were going to take it to them because they weren't expecting us to be out on the ground as much in winter. And so we did, and it ended up being quite a kinetic trip for us. It was a much smaller team, much smaller troop, but we were able to, achieve quite a lot in that trip. And it was actually one of the good trips. Yeah.
How cold did it get, mate? Because I saw the snow on the peaks of the mountains. How cold was
Oh
it?
yeah. It's cold. Like it snows, especially in the eastern parts and the higher areas. Like freezing cold. I remember getting off the choppers, just absolute freezing. Yeah, not nice. And the thing is with the grant, like in the valleys there in Afghanistan, because people don't understand sometimes that it's a desert, it's rocky desert, and there's mountainous terrain everywhere. And then in the valleys, it's quite green during summer. It's actually quite green, quite thick, and that's where a lot of the close water sort of contacts were, because it was very thick and close up. You couldn't see. In winter, because it was so cold, all that died off, so it became quite open, and it was just a different aspect to it. Yeah.
And I know a lot of the guys that I've had on is a lot of them said they can remember the smell of Afghanistan because they said it stinks.
Yeah.
And because for the non-military listener, and Ryan, as you know, you've been over there, and I only know it because I've done so many podcasts now, is that the Afghan people, to stay warm, they dry their feces out and then they burn their feces so to keep warm. So it stinks.
It did. Yeah, it was a distinctive smell, I think, and it's something that kind of burnt into your memory, I think, because it was associated with so many high intense traumatic type events for everyone. Whether traumatic is probably not the right word, but high intensity events that, your mind just sort of doesn't forget that smell. And every now and then, you kind of relive it, and it brings back all those sort of memories. Yeah. I definitely agree with that. And dealing with a lot of dead bodies and things like that, I still remember that smell as well. Yeah.
Mm. And did you guys lose anyone on that trip, mate, or were you lucky that you just didn't lose anybody?
On the 2012, 2013?
2013, yep.
2013. No, we didn't lose. We lost a dog. We didn't lose any team members, but we lost a dog. Yeah.
And is that from that, when the dog was lost, is that where your interest sparked in going down the canine side of things?
Correct. Yes. Because I was directly involved in that incident. We'd landed on this target. We sort of got into a bit of a contact straight away. Then we cleared through the village. As a consequence, in that contact, a civilian had been wounded, so we needed to get a HLZ, like get a helicopter in to get him out. So we were doing that, and myself and another the dog handler at the time, and Fax, the dog, we were tasked to go find a HLZ so we could land the bird in and get the casualty out. So off we went, the two of us, while at the same time everyone's sort of continuing on the job. We were there to find a high value target, Taliban leader. So, we had to kind of do everything at the same time. But our task was to find the HLZ. So off we went. And as we were heading towards an area that we thought might be suitable, we had the dog out front, Fax. And I remember seeing him just sort of, stop, head raised slightly, have a sniff, and then he took off on a 90-degree turn and I could just tell he had smelt someone and he was onto him. So it's probably like 50 meters in front of us, something not far. And he got down behind this sort of rock formation, and then there was a growl and everything, and then we heard a bang. That unfortunately the Talib had been able to shake off Fax and shot him point blank range. But it obviously alerted us to the ambush that we were walking straight into. We would have walked straight into him, and I have no doubt that one of us, if not both of us, probably would have got killed. So that allowed us to get cover. We started engaging the Taliban, and they're engaging back. This time, my colleague, he was kind of pinned down. He was receiving most of the fire, which allowed me to sort of back off a bit and come around the flank onto a bit of high ground, and then flank the ambush and engage. And within, I don't know, a few minutes, it was all over. We'd killed him, and then we moved up, found Fax. He was lifeless. But when we got there, I thought I sort of felt a pulse. So we did our best. We worked on him, did CPR for 40 odd minutes till the bird came in. And I still remember, doing CPR on a dog. I'd never really done it. I didn't know what to do. But so, my colleague sort of said, grab the snout, close the snout, breathe through his nose. I'll do the compression. So I'm trying to breathe through his nose and his snout in my mouth. And then all the blood internally is bleeding out, and it was just coming back up through his nose. So I was just getting mouthfuls of his blood every time I was trying to breathe. And so I'm spitting that out and then trying to get air into him. But yeah, it had actually clipped his aorta, and he was bleeding out quite a lot internally, and there was nothing we could have done, but we did everything we could and got him on the bird. But he died before he got back to TK.
And that, mate, I know, because I love dogs and I own dogs, and I recently lost my own dog, mate. Fax made the ultimate sacrifice to save you. Like, as you say, like that, you guys were walking straight into an ambush, and that, I still remember, like, I've just watched the Bravery and Betrayal documentary, and where the US guy says you're cleared for all dogs go to heaven, and I burst into tears, mate, because I don't care who you are, mate. You've lost a mate. Like, Fax is a mate, and he's a brother in arms that, he was doing his job, and I thank you for sharing, mate, because I know how hard that is. And as you say, he wasn't your dog, but he was part of the team.
Oh, 100%. All the dogs were treated as team members. They weren't, expendable resources or anything like that. They were treated as another operator, 100%. And it hit the team pretty hard. Everyone was pretty annoyed, pretty upset with it. But he saved our lives at the end of the day, and I'll forever be grateful. And I decided to dedicate the rest of my career and post career as well to dogs.
And we'll get into that now. So, Fax passes away, mate. It's another kinetic trip. And how long was that deployment for? Was that another long deployment?
It's about 4 or 5 months. Yeah.
So then you come back, SOTG's wrapped up. It's like Afghanistan, that's it. No more Afghanistan. And this is where you actually move into, as you said, you start to dedicate the rest of your career to the dog handling side of things. And you're the first dog handler I've had on, mate. So what do you do as a canine handler in the regiment?
Yeah. So I did. I got back, and I straight away got on the next dog handling course. I decided that's where I wanted to go, so I did that. So as a dog handler, you get paired up with the canine on the course, and then you're basically now a support element for the assaulters. So that dog, our dog program was world class. These dogs could track, they could do explosive detection, and they could do attack. So, sniffing out people in attack. I mean, that was their main priority, right? Main task. So you become a bit of you float between the teams, and you use this dog as a force multiplier. And also, when we're going to make entry into a building, I'm not going to send the dog in if you are not willing to go in the building. So if there's someone firing out of that building or whatever, like I'm not just going to send the dog in, right? But if you decide as a team leader and the team decides we are going in that building, then he goes in first because that's his job, right? But I'm not sending him in unless you're as a team willing to go into that building. So he would go in and clear the building or do whatever he could to give the guys a bit of early warning. If we ever moved between villages or between compounds and stuff, some of the dogs would be out front off lead and like exactly like Fax did, pick up an ambush, anyone waiting in ambush, So and they could do explosive detection as well. So there's been multiple stories as well in Afghan where our dogs have picked up IEDs and explosives in compounds and things like that and saved multiple lives.
It's amazing, isn't it, mate? The capability and what those dogs, like their noses are so sensitive to anything. And so do you, with that, like being, and I don't want to give trade secrets away, but are you training them to like, because for me, like I hear that, mate, is they can pick up IED, like the smell of an IED. Like to me, it just smell like plastic. Like it, like
Yeah,
are you exposing them to like the what's inside of the IED, or how's that work?
yeah. They to explain how a dog their odor, ability to detect odor is a lot more developed than ours. So whereas we would smell a coffee, right? You have all the combined things in a coffee, but we just smell and go, oh, that's coffee. That's a cup of coffee. They would be able to smell the milk, the coffee beans, the sugar, the container it's in. They would be able to differentiate all those smells. So that's why when it comes with explosives, we always train them on, on certain different explosives, the actual raw explosive itself, and that's the thing they got to find. We don't want them picking up plastic or sitting on something plastic or whatever, but they've got to find that raw explosive component, and you can train them to be able to do that, and they can detect that no matter what else is involved in that concoction or whatever. So that's just how good their noses are.
Mm. And do they, if they have found something, mate, do they don't dig, they
No,
sit, they just sit and something's there, or
correct. And that was how we train them. They sit and looked at it. So if we ever saw a dog just sitting there and looking, then we knew they're onto some sort of explosive because a Malinois would never just sit. They're very high driven dogs. So, everyone kind of knew that if they were sitting there and intently looking at something, you kind of back away and we'll see what's going on. Yeah.
So that is where you spend a lot more the next part of your career, and are you helping build the capability of the dogs, or what's happening?
Well, the first part, I was still in 3 Squadron as a dog handler for about 4 years, I think, with K Troop. So I was just training really and developing Kenny and learning my tradecraft as a dog handler. And everything I did, I had to do with Kenny. Had to work out, whether it be free fall, fast roping onto a moving cargo ship, whatever. He was there. I had to get him with me. So we did all that for like 4 years. Oh, Kenny's my dog too, by the way.
So, mate, for the non-military listener, like, so is Kenny going on? So he's going on a bird with you, is that right? And how are you getting him off? Like, if you're fast roping down, how are you getting Kenny off?
Well, he'll be attached to me, and I'll have to use what they call a fast roping device. It basically puts a kink in the fast rope, so a bit of friction to allow heavy weight to be fast roped down. So I'll be connected to that, and I'll come out last, and we'll both go down, so we can both fast rope down. But
That
yeah.
in itself, mate, has challenges. Like how did you get Kenny used to the noise, and like how was that? Did you put earmuffs on him, or what? What happens there?
Yeah, look, there's a lot. It's not like you can just go, okay, we're going to go fast roping today, mate. Like, let's go. Like, there's a lot of process uh, developing him to that point, from getting used to the helicopter when it's not running. So, just taking him over it, playing with the Kong over it, getting him just familiar with it and all the smells and everything.
Hmm.
Getting him used to a helicopter when it is running at a distance, getting used to the noises and everything. And then slowly getting him closer and closer because there's a big downwash from the helicopter blades as you get to a certain point.
Yep.
And that Kenny used to absolutely hate that, right? He'd hit that and he'd turn around and want to bolt away. So I had to do a lot of work to get him comfortable with that. In the end, he knew he had to get on the helicopter. So as soon as he got to that downwash and he felt that, I'd unclip him and he would just sprint and jump on the helicopter before anyone because he just wanted to get out of that. But, and then there's, getting him used to all the equipment and everything. But these dogs are picked because they have strong nerves and they're able to be put through these type of ordeals, I suppose. Yeah.
Mm. And it's interesting, mate, because like I winch in and out of helicopters for fires, mate. So I know what you're talking about. So it's I get it, and like for me, I sometimes go, "Phew, I'm getting blown around here." Like having,
Yeah.
I can understand for a dog, and so is that with you being the handler, and say you're going on to like a ship or something, have you, as his handler, do you do a lot of work with the team leader at that, and say, right, this is my plan of how, or what happens there?
Yeah, exactly like that. The team leader will will obviously want the dog there, and you will be like, okay, you back brief the team leader on how you're going to do it. This is what I need. This is where I'm going to be in the stack. I'm going to be last down, but I'll catch up. Yeah. So you just and the team. He's part of the team, so the rest of the team want to help, and they do, and you work as a team to get it all done. Yeah.
Mm. And so, did you keep Kenny right through? Was he your only dog? Yep.
Yeah.
And what happens to them, mate, when so say if you leave, do they get reissued to a new handler, or what happens?
Yeah, they can. If they're still operational, they can be re-teamed to a new handler, which did happen quite a bit. But usually in the same squadron and usually someone that you're comfortable with, and you sort of hand them over.
Mm.
Kenny was sort of re-teamed quickly with a mate of mine in 3 Squadron, but after a few months, they realised his back was pretty cooked when he was about 7 or 8. So he pretty much reached the end of his career, and they sort of said, you could probably get another year out of him, but his quality of life when he retires is going to be horrible. You could retire him now, and he could have a comfortable retirement. So on that day, we retired him that day. And he's been in my backyard ever since, and he's 15 now, and he's still going.
Oh wow! Oh mate, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I had a border collie till he was nearly 17, so he
Yeah,
passed away
well,
at 16 years and 9 months. So it
wow,
was.
that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, mate, my whole childhood. So when he passed away, it was a hard day, and I know it'll be a hard day for you too, mate. So,
Well, he's been through everything with me, and I always joke, but it's the longest relationship I've ever had. So.
mate, dog is a man's best friend. So, yeah,
Yeah.
mate. He's obviously loved, mate. So you go through that with Kenny, and the dog handling is where you found your real passion, but.
Mm.
You then, in 2019, mate, you move over into OSS and talk me through this. So, Weeksy did fill me in a little bit about OSS and, yeah, talk me through this part of your career.
Okay, yeah. So I'm not sure what it's like now. The structure of the regiment's probably completely different, but back then, OSS, Operational Support Squadron, it was basically the training squadron for the regiment. So they'd have a bunch of capabilities, the snipers, whatever, mountain warfare. And they have a specialist there who's basically responsible for developing that capability throughout the unit. So I was posted to the K9 cell within OSS, and you're responsible for running the K9 handling course for all the dogs. We had the big kennel bank, so all the dogs are there. And you work with the squadrons to develop training, to do validations, because all the dogs had to validate twice a year to make sure they were still up to scratch. Yeah, and you sort of monitor all that, manage all that, and you look on how you're going to move the capability forward in the future.
Is that for you? Because I know Weeksy, he touched on it a lot that he really enjoyed OSS, and because some looked at it as, oh God, here we go, we're going to training. Like for
Mm.
you, was it a rewarding, looking back now, was it a rewarding part of giving back to the regiment?
I absolutely loved it. I think it was probably one of my highlights of my career. I really enjoyed running the courses. I really enjoyed the freedom I had to run training interstate. Yeah, I really thought it gave me an opportunity to show what I was capable of as well in terms of management and leadership. And so I was finally given that opportunity. And yeah, it was really, I think, a really important part of my career.
And are you with that? Are you guys working in with the like the police, and or are you guys separate? Like, are you guys running through their dog programs? And as you said, you're going interstate. Are you branching out to the police?
We did work a lot because at that time, a lot of the tactical units wanted, like the Soggies in Melbourne and that, wanted to raise their canine capability. So yeah, I did some trips over there and worked with them
Yeah,
to
right.
yeah. Mm.
So, as you say, rewarding part of your career, mate. And then you're probably a little bit shorter than you wanted, mate. But in 2020 and 2021, you become 2IC in 2 Squadron. And I want to touch on this, mate, because you were there when 2 Squadron was disbanded. And what was that like, mate, being that it was disbanded?
Oh, it was just utter lunacy. It was ridiculous. Not one person who was in that squadron at that time had was in the squadron during Afghanistan. The, it was a purely political act that had no bearing other than reduce the capability of the SAS. So the disbanding 2 Squadron at the time did nothing to rectify whatever the issue they were trying to rectify. All it did was reduce the capability of the regiment. Because like I said, no one who was in the I was in 3 Squadron before that. And we all rotate through. There was a bunch of new guys who 2 Squadron. So it just did not add up to me, and I think it was just utter lunacy. Mm.
Well, as you know, mate, that and Weeksy touched on it as well. And I don't want to. This is your podcast, but it's good. It's good. It's good reference of what he said was basically this is where the army started to change and wanted to push out the warrior culture
Yeah.
of and the as I say, mate, this is just lunacy because all those years of experience, of combat experience, that's only going to help your regiment and, be it's still at the sharpest end of, fighting. We went down a different path and a path that, we won't touch on, we won't go into it because I'll just end up getting upset or sued or something. So, but
No, no, but I agree with what you're saying and what Weeks is saying, and I think this was the start. And from this moment on, it almost became a kind of like a red flower, black mark against your name if you'd been to Afghanistan. It was like they're actively looking at ways to get rid of you. So yeah, I mean, look, I'm not sugarcoating anything. Like it's the reason I got out. I lost all faith and trust and belief. My entire value system was turned upside down. The very, people who we were fighting for, who we were trusting, were now trying to put all our mates in jail and investigate us and do all these things and sack everyone. They made your life so hard that it was just like you either get out or we're going to make your life incredibly difficult. We don't want you here anymore. We don't want
mm,
you. That's basically what they said to us.
mm.
So there was a bit of a mass exodus around that period because there was just no way of staying in. Yeah.
And because, and mate, I know I didn't bring this up with you, but because it's just come to my head, and I know that you can answer it or you choose not to. But w- was that where the IGATAF, like you guys were all, if you served in Afghanistan, you were basically dragged through the coals because you'd served in Afghanistan?
Correct. Yeah. We all were. Yeah.
And
And I would say it's interrogated, not interviewed. Yeah.
yeah, good. I'm glad you said that, mate. I'm glad those are your words because I know that's what it was. It was, speaking to a lot of the guys, they said it was an interrogation. It was not an interview. It was disgusting the way that you guys were treated, and you'd served your country, and mate, you were ordered to go. It's not like you chose, oh well, we're going to go to Afghanistan, even though it's a beautiful country. You were ordered to go. That was your job. And you were doing your job. So, yeah. And so let's talk about that now, mate, that you, as you said, you discharged in 2021. How was that, mate? Because this is where I really want to deep dive because I know most veterans that I've had on do struggle with transition. And how was that for you going from such a kinetic lifestyle that you'd been living for, as you said, 12 years to then coming back to being a civilian? How was that, mate? And did you struggle?
Oh, yeah. Look, it was difficult, not only because like it wasn't really choice to leave, but it was I didn't see any other way, any other option, because I just lost all, I guess, all my values, everything I believed in was sort of turned upside down at that point. So I didn't know what I believed in anymore. I got to a point where I thought I can't deploy anymore because if I go overseas, I'm going to hesitate to pull the trigger because I'm going to worry that my own government and my own army is going to try and put me in jail or do something. So I'm like, I'm going to end up getting killed or I'm going to get somebody killed because I'm going to hesitate and second guess my, decision making process. So I thought for me, that's it. I can't continue to serve. And, I would have done anything for the government and for the army. Back then, I was probably brainwashed quite a bit. And, at that point when it was all shattered. I didn't know what to believe in. I no longer trusted the government. I no longer trusted the hierarchy in the military. And, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I lost all purpose. Yeah, I started drinking again pretty heavily, well, more than I was before. Wasn't training, wasn't exercising. Just didn't know what to do, didn't know there was nothing really worth getting out of bed for. So it hit a really dark place, to be honest. It was incredibly challenging, yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, mate, because I've been there myself. And yeah, it's that will to live. You got to try and find something. And did because as you have alluded to, you're compartmentalizing all the stuff that you've done 3 years back to back to back deployments, and the kinetic side of, losing facts and all this stuff is compartmentalizing. You've now lost your purpose. And as you say, that you're questioning to pull the trigger, which is what your job is. It is you're trained to do this
Mhm.
job and you're trained very highly. And as you say, if you lose that, I understand it, mate. I get it. It's a dangerous, as you say, you probably did make the right decision. And was there some dark thoughts that came into your mind after that post, like when you got out?
Oh, for sure. I didn't know what my self-worth was, to be honest. I started, there was a lot in the media about the SAS and war crimes and everything. And so I felt ashamed to be associated with Afghanistan, have gone to Afghanistan and wasn't really proud of, even my service or anything. And yeah. So it took a lot to get myself out of that hole. But yeah, definitely a lot of dark thoughts. You always think, you're the hero in the story. When you watch a movie, you're the good guy. That's you. That's how, and now you got the whole world, the media and the army and the government telling you, no, you're actually the bad guy. You're
Mm.
the
You're,
villain in the movie.
mm.
And so it had a really negative impact on my mental health. Yeah.
And how's your family? Are they trying to get around you and say, "No, mate, be proud of you, sir"? And look, mate, I understand. Like, I get it that like people are attacking your service, like, and the media just were unrelenting. They just kept like every time you turned on the TV, mate, it was SAS, it was war crimes, it was,
Mhm.
Afghanistan, it was everything that, that. like, and I understand why you would be questioning your service and going, well, what was it all like? Do I
Mm.
like I do I just hide my medals and do I not do I just have it where I do not say that I ever served in the army because to protect your family? How are they getting around you and supporting you?
Amazing. Like my family have always been my biggest supporter, and they've always been, behind me and backed me, and yeah, they've been nothing but incredible through the whole process, and really helped me get out of that hole. Both my sisters have been amazing. Kelly and Leah, they'll be happy that they always ask me to mention them in the podcast, and this is the first time I've done it, so I should be happy now. But they, no, they really helped me, and they've been big, advocates of protecting the SAS or getting, our service recognised out there, and looking after everyone. And my mum and dad just they worry a lot about it, naturally. But at the end of the day, I'll always be their son, and nothing's going to change that. So
Of
yeah,
course, mate. Of course, and it's, mate. As I say, it's a privilege to sit with you, mate, and this is why I do the podcast now to give you guys a platform that is unbiased. It is not. There's no spin. There's no bullshit. It is you guys are on the ground. This is you guys sharing your stories, and mate, I've had so many of the guys from the regiment now come to me, and there's other podcasts as well that are allowing you guys to share your stories unbiased, and it's a privilege, mate. So absolutely. And did you seek to put your hand up and go, okay, I actually need to speak to a psych here, and I need to start trying to heal myself?
eventually I did. Yeah, after I probably done a lot of damage to some relationships in my life. Yeah, I think it got to a point where I was like, okay, something needs to change. I think I do need help. Like, and it took a while to find the right psych, I think, and the right help, professional support. Went through a few different ones and eventually found someone that sort of clicked with and felt comfortable with. And, it really helped because the way I can sort of explain it was, you're right, I compartmentalized everything. That's what we were trained to do. We were trained to really not, be emotional about things. So emotional reactions and stuff have always been tough for me ever since getting out as well. We don't, because we were sort of trained not to be emotional, but to compartmentalize everything and then put it in a little storage like cupboard in the back of your brain
I'll
and
deal with
shut.
that later. I'll deal with that
Yeah.
later. Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
just did it and you kept putting it in there and you did it. And then, your values and your belief system and that kept that door shut. Right? That's what kept everything nice and neat and tidy.
Mm.
And then when, everything happened with the IGADF and everything that happened in that period where my values and beliefs were shattered and turned upside down, that door just swung wide open and everything fell out. And I had no idea how to put it all back in or to tidy it up. So, and that's where the professional help helped me sort of piece it all back together.
Mm. And I know exactly what you're talking about, mate, because it took me 3 years to find the right psychologist too, and
Mm.
and I
Mm.
almost I almost gave up again. I was like, oh, I'm not going to find the right person. They're just not like, it's just not. No one's helping. They're just ticking
Mm.
boxes. And then finally, I found the right guy, and he
Mm.
just straight down the barrel, mate. Just bang, this is what you need to do, and stop. You need to get out of your own way, and as
Yeah.
stop playing the victim, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and you're right, mate. The regiment is so good, and really good point you touched on just before, is the regiment's so good at like teaching you to show no emotion, just compartmentalize. And we do it as well, mate, as first responders. Like
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
it's exactly the same thing. If you go out to an MVA or
Mm.
or a house fire or something like that, it's just you got to switch off. There's no emotion. That's a person. They're a thing in there that you need to get out, or
Correct.
it's just, yep, it's tragic what's happened, but just crack on with the job, because the
But
moment
you
you
got
put,
to.
yeah,
Yeah, you got to. Otherwise, you can't do your job. Right.
exactly.
And I think it serves a purpose. And And, there's a reason why they trained us like that. We wouldn't have been able to do all those jobs, and same as the first responder, right? But what they don't focus on is then how to deal with it later down the track. I think, and
That's
that's the problem, because it does come out eventually.
of
It will.
course.
Yeah.
And mate, you only got to see how many guys that you've lost post service to, who've chosen to take their life.
Yeah.
It's, and mate, it is a big thing to put your hand up and say, I need help. Like, mate, there's more courage in that. And I'm forever breaking down that stigma of it's weak to speak. It's not, it's a sign of strength. It's a sign of courage to say, actually, no, I want to get better. And, the more that people do it, like, and I understand that, it's hard in the regiment to say, hey, actually, hey, I do need help, or same as first responders or men, because we're not good at putting our emotions forward, to break that stigma down. So, mate, credit to you. And so you start doing that, but finding that purpose, how did you get out of that hole again? Like in 2022, you actually completed your MBA, and was that part of the start of the process to find purpose again?
Yeah, actually, I actually completed that in 2020, so just before I got out of the army, which I've always enjoyed studying. So I was lucky enough to get it paid for by the regiment, and through a Wanderers education program, which Harry Moffat set up. Who
I
was a
actually,
Yeah, so he was a good mate of mine. Or he's a good mate of mine. We were in the same team together through that second tour, and yeah, we spent a lot of time together. Yeah,
a,
so
pre
he
a,
said, yeah,
a previous guest of the podcast, mate,
yeah, yeah.
episode 49, and I actually just spoke to him literally a week ago for part two with his new book. So,
Oh yeah, I've been trying to get through his new book. I just
yeah.
can't stand his voice, but anyway, because I listened to it on audio.
Mate, I just finished it. I just finished it actually. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No, it's a good read. All right,
absolutely. Yeah,
he's
sorry.
he's a smart guy.
And beautiful what he set up too. That
Right.
program for non-commissioned officers, fantastic
Correct.
program. And so you took advantage of that program, that scholarship.
I did, and was able to complete it between 2017 and 2020, so part-time, doing the flexible option at UWA. Great course, met a lot of cool people. I learnt so much, which really set me up for my business career post-military, which, I sort of had a loose plan, but didn't really have a solid plan. And it wasn't until so then I got out, and then I sort of hit rock bottom, like we discussed. And it wasn't until, I did seek professional help, but to find purpose again, it wasn't until I got meaningful employment thing again. So, and funny enough, it came from, I was drinking a bottle of whiskey one night and reading the label, and I realized, oh, this whiskey is actually made in Perth, just down the road from where I am. Whippersnapper Distillery. I'm like, oh, okay. Wouldn't mind checking that out. So Googled them, had a look, thought, right, I'm not really doing anything. I'd like to learn how whiskey's made and stuff. Been drinking quite a lot of it. So I reached out to them, sent an email just to their website email address, and within 20 minutes, Jimmy McEwen, who's the master distiller and co-founder, gave me a call. I explained in the email I was ex-military and this is my situation and loved to learn. Gave me a call and was like, hey, yep, let's set up a meeting. Come down. We'll work something out. So went and met him. He's a couple of years younger than me. Like a real entrepreneurial go-getter, great guy, really business savvy guy. Anyway, so long story short, we ended up becoming good mates, and I ended up starting working there, volunteering, just sort of working in production and mopping floors and, I don't know, getting in the way of everyone because I didn't know what I was doing. And, I got to know Jimmy and Alistair Mullock as well. I was the other co-founder. So I got to know Jimmy and Al really well, and sort of they got to learn about me and everything, and knew I'd done this MBA, and they knew about my SAS background. And so eventually Jimmy and Al came to me one day and were like, hey, look, we don't want you working in production. I'm like, yeah, fair enough. I saw this coming because I'm absolutely useless at this. But they're like, no, but we want you to run the company. And I was like, you're mad. You're crazy. What are you talking about? I know nothing about running a whiskey distillery. And they're like, we can teach you the industry, but we can't teach you the experience that you got from your time in the SAS and all that. And they said, that's what we want. We want that. We see that as an asset. So I was lucky enough to meet people who saw that as an asset and as a benefit. So, I then said, fine, let's do this. Spend a year in like strategic development or business development and strategic planning just to get an idea of the business and the industry, and then became the general manager. But learning so much along the way from both Jimmy and Al, two very inspirational sort of blokes who started this from nothing. And they've brought me on as sort of a third partner. Yes, they're the founders. They always will be. I know where I sit in the pecking order, but they treat me like another one of one of the executive team.
Mm.
So, I've got some investment in the business now as well, some skin in the game. So really, really, that is what pulled me out of the rut. Funny enough, working at a whiskey distillery, I started drinking less. You might think it might be not conducive for someone who I was probably struggling with alcoholism at the time. Actually, it wasn't. So it's not the environment being around alcohol at the time that was a problem. It was the lack of direction and purpose. And being at a distillery, and it didn't matter what it was. It was now I had a purpose. I had a reason to get out of bed in the morning and not be hungover. I wanted to build this company and make it operate as best as I could. So that really pulled me out of it.
And for you, mate, are you guys worldwide or are you just Australia? Like, what's like
Yeah,
whippersnapper?
Australia-wide now. Dan Murphy's, Costco, Liquorland, all the Coles ones as well. But so Australia-wide, and I'm just starting. I'm doing a lot of travel now over to a lot of different countries and starting to get our export volume up. Yeah.
And is that so? Obviously, mate, it's a hard industry. The alcohol industry is a hard industry, and you've got so many taxes and like,
Mm.
has that been a hard thing to balance as well with all the taxes and everything that goes on in the alcohol industry?
It's an incredibly difficult industry to be involved in and to be successful in, I think. Whiskey in particular, because one, there's a lot of barriers to entry in terms of capital, working capital and investment to get whiskey, to make whiskey, in terms of plant, property, and equipment and skills and knowledge. But also, to be a whiskey in Australia, minimum time it needs to age in oak in a barrel is 2 years, right? So a lot of our products are aging between 2 and 5 years. So you incur all the costs immediately to producing that product, but you don't incur any revenue generated from that product for another 2 to 5 years later. So there's always a bit of a cash flow problem, and you're always sort of chasing your tail a bit. But I like it. It's challenging in that way. There's a lot of you got to plan forward, but you've got to still be adaptable and be able to change the direction slightly. But yes, there's a lot of challenges to the industry, and excise tax is one. We are one of the highest, if not the highest, taxed on alcohol, on spirits products in the world. I think it's about $105 per lao now, which is a litre of alcohol. So if you imagine a litre of 100% alcohol, we would pay $105 to the government to produce that, right? So, you're talking, this is the most expensive part of making a whiskey, is the tax, right? So that makes it incredibly difficult to be competitive against some other industries or wine in particular is a lot lower, beer and whatnot. So, it's challenging. There are a lot of obstacles, but I guess I enjoy that. I like the challenge. I like, living month to month, but also planning for the future because we've got to try and work out what does everyone want to drink in 2 to 5 years. All right, let's make some of that. Is that a risk? Yeah, no one might drink it, but we've got to do it. We've got to age it. We've got to test it, But luckily, that's where Jimmy comes in. He's the master distiller, an incredibly intelligent bloke in terms of science and chemistry and palate, and just sort of has a knack on knowing what people want to drink. And he makes some amazing whiskey. Yeah.
Mate, I do love a whiskey, so I'll have to get a bottle off you, mate, and
Yeah,
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 try
for
it
sure.
out. So what do you do? All different types, like so you do like all different like what
Yeah,
you got
yeah, we do.
spiced and all that sort of stuff.
No spice stuff or anything. We do whiskey, right? But we do whiskey predominantly with an EY. So
Okay,
that being so more of an American style whiskey. So our
okay,
main core products or the upshot is essentially what you would call a bourbon, right?
okay, yep,
Bourbon, to be called something a bourbon, it needs to be made in the US. And there's a few other rules and stuff that you have to follow. But so we call it Australian corn whiskey. It's made out of corn, majority
okay,
corn. Right?
yeah,
So very different than your traditional Scotch or single malt style whiskies, right?
yep,
We do make a single malt as well, 100% single malted barley. So, but we only use grains that are grown in WA. We do think whiskey should be a representation of the region, the area that you're from. So if it doesn't grow here, we don't use it. So, we won't have any peated whiskies or anything like that because we don't really have peat here.
yep.
But we have some of the world's best barley, wheat, rye, corn. So, through the wheat belt there, we have all those grains. So we have a corn whiskey in the Upshot series. And we have the wheat belt series of whiskies where we have a wheat, a rye, and a single malt. So we use all those grains to showcase, the amazing world-class grains that are grown across Western Australia. Mm.
Yeah, I love that, mate. Locally sourced is it's always
Mm.
better. So, and how many's in the team, mate? Have you got a few, like a whole like as you said, the production line? Is there a big team of how many work with yous?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of different components to the business. There's a production. We keep that as small as we can. There's probably 2 to 3 there. But then the cellar door, we have a cellar door and a cafe that runs 7 days a week, and that's got quite a few. Probably around 15 employees. From full time to casual. We have our external sales team, like external markets that go to markets every weekend, and the Royal Show, which is on right now, Perth Royal Show. So, and there's another 5 or 6 people there, and it's a mixture of full time, part time, casual employees. Yeah.
So you're growing, mate, which is really good to see. And as you said, it's challenging. You love it, and as you said, you found purpose again.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely done wonders for me, for my mental health. Like I said, I was very lucky to meet Jimmy and Al, who recognised my skills, I suppose, from the military and be able to give me that role as a GM and not have to start all over again in my late 30s doing grad program or something, to try and climb that corporate ladder. But so yeah, I've been incredibly lucky. I do really appreciate it. Mm.
Absolutely, and you also in that time, mate, as you said, you do a lot of volunteering as well, and we're going to get into some of the things and one of the co-founder things shortly that I really want to touch on. But you also give back to Wandering Warriors, mate, and for our non-military listeners, what is Wandering Warriors?
Yeah, so Wandering Warriors is a charity that basically raises money to help pay for education for ex-So Command members or defence wide now as well. So to help educate, because for me as well, the biggest thing that helped me post service was obviously meaningful employment, but education, doing the MBA really, really helped. So kind of passionate about trying to help people have access to education as well. So they raise money to help fund scholarships for that. I don't do too much with them at the moment. I try and help out over here in WA where I can, but they're currently doing the poly pedal, which is a week long sort of bike ride that a few politicians do and raise a lot of money along the way. And so and all the money proceeds goes to Wandering Warriors. So they're out there at the moment doing some great work, raising the money to fund these scholarships. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're also touring around the country. They're pretty busy at the moment, mate. They're also doing the Bravery and Betrayal documentary as well.
Correct. So they were responsible for helping raise money for that and put their name on that, which is great. So yeah, that's another thing they're achieving as well. Mm.
Absolutely. And you did a bit of time, mate, with RSL WA, and mate, What was that like working with RSL?
Look, it was good. I met some good people. Got good mates with Duncan Anderson, who's the president there now. I was just on the fundraising committee, so just a member of the fundraising committee, just trying to help do whatever we could. And yeah, it was interesting. There's definitely a lot of politics and everything that goes with that place. But no, everyone there is trying to do the right thing and trying to help veterans and hearts in the right place. So
It's good to hear, mate, because I know some aren't. So
yeah, it is. Yeah.
it's good to hear. So, and mate, you actually did a little bit of time with Working Spirit. And what's Working Spirit? What do they do?
Yeah, so I Working Spirit are a charity formed by ex-Air Force service woman Karen Hinder, who's an amazing human being. So she's started this charity that is basically like a recruiting agency for ex-serving members who are leaving the military. They sort of sign up with Working Spirit. There's a big online platform and everything. She's put a lot of effort into it. And then she and her team go and try and find roles and connect you with the different employers, whether it be mining, oil and gas, or whatever it is, or anywhere. So she's doing a lot of work because, again, she believes in employment being a meaningful employment being super important to mental health, which, again, like I said, for me, it was education and employment, which helped me. So I wanted to help her sort of achieve that mission. So I was on the board with her for 3 years, I think, just trying to help her push that forward. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, fantastic initiative, mate, and hopefully it spans out across eventually to first responders as well. Not just in
Definitely.
WA, but hopefully because there's some amazing first responders, mate, that could benefit from that as well because they're not just a police officer or they're not just a firefighter, they're not just an ambulance, paramedic. They've got amazing skills as what you were, from
Definitely.
what you got from your military as well, and exact. So let's hope the government, gets on board and supports. But anyway, we can only hope. But I'll leave it. I'll leave it there with the government. So it's yeah, less said the better. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. But mate, I want to talk about something that you've talked throughout the podcast and you're passionate about is the your canines and working with the dogs and you co-founded Working Paws Australia, and mate, talk me through this. What is Working Paws Australia, and what do you hope it is going forward into the future?
Yeah, for sure. So to begin with, Working Paws Australia, yes, I was co-founder along with another mate of mine, Jace Kelly, he was ex-Air Force most all his life, dog handler. And we worked together in the regiment when I was a dog handler and he was what they used to call a DLO, a dog liaison officer. Basically, they had the specialty in training dogs and we were the handlers. So they were the trainers, we handled. So I'd go out on a job, something happened, I'd come back and say, hey, Jace, he did this. How do we fix it? And then we would work together to fix it. So, yeah, anyway, we've been really good mates. And so we were sitting down one day chatting and talking about how expensive it is now to look after our retired working dogs because they're all injured from their service and they all have ongoing injuries and illnesses. And we've seen a mate, fork out 20 grand for surgery for his dog, and what that did to his life, like in terms of financially. So we're like, we didn't feel like that was quite right, that these dogs who had served and done everything just as we had done, when they retire, they then become the full financial burden of the handler and responsibility of the handler, which creates a lot of mental stress, not only financial stress, but mental stress. So we decided to create this charity, Working Paws Australia, which it's quite simple. We raise money to then pay for any medical services that any retired military or police working dog require. So whether it be surgeries, ongoing medication for arthritis, vaccinations, checkup, whatever, anything, we'll pay for it. So yeah, we started, I think a couple of years ago now, raising money has been challenging. We've raised enough to help quite a few dogs and their handlers. But yeah, it's an ongoing challenge. But yeah, I think we have around 60 dogs across Australia registered. And yeah, anytime they need help, they just reach out and we'll pay for their vet bill. Because we just don't think it's right that these dogs, the financial burden gets put on the handler after their service. You know, if I was injured in the military, it would be looked after by the government for the rest of my life. Why aren't their injuries looked after as well? So, and at this stage, they're not. The government won't. So, and I've had a lot of conversations with DVA, applied for a lot of grants and everything, and got exactly $0 from them. So, it seems to me that they're not interested in taking this on, but so that won't stop us raising more money and trying to make sure all these dogs get the care they need so they can have a dignified and happy retirement, you know. So,
Well,
because a lot of these bills are expensive, you know, we just did one, I think, for a ligament, a knee, or sorry, like yeah, some ligament issue for one of the dogs in Tasmania, and it was like nearly $5,000, like a routine surgery, you know, and there's no Medicare, there's no getting any of that back. So, you know, we help where we can.
and that to me, mate, is like fantastic job what you guys are doing. And good friend of both of ours. I know she absolutely, Carney Armstrong, she is such a supporter and good friends with both you and I. And
Mm.
she was such an advocate on her podcast talking about Working Paws Australia. And it's, mate, you're right. It's just, it's, I think it's the decency and and dignity to these dogs, as you said, have served their country. They've risked their lives to protect you guys, and it's proven that they saved lives on deployments. Like, it just to me is a no-brainer that, you know, give these dogs, like, yeah, you're right. Why should the burden fall back on the retired handler once, like, it's, yeah, anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no,
Well,
I agree, and I think, you know, it's an education process. So we're going to raise money, and that's got its challenges as well. But two, we're going to raise awareness. You know, I know what these dogs did for us. I know I owe my life to one. You know, so now it's about educating people why we should be looking after these dogs as best we can, so they have the, you know, the retirement they deserve. Because my concern is that, you know, the financial burden and the mental burden gets put on the veteran, and they'll do everything they can to look after their dog. They will.
mm,
But what financial stress is that putting then, and what mental burden stress is that putting on the veteran who
mm,
has a family, who has kids, who has, you know, mortgage to pay? And I would just hate to see the dog not getting the care they need because of other financial issues,
mm.
or the handler putting themselves in financial stress to help the dog, right? Because that's what, more than likely, that's what's going to happen. So it's helping both, but we just, you know, I understand why we want to do it and why we should, and why I think it's just a basic, shouldn't even be a question, but it's about advocacy now, and educating and getting the story out there, and talking to the right people, I suppose.
Absolutely, it's like anything, mate. You speak to the right person, and
Yeah.
hopefully, someone who's got deep pockets and can, you know, just go, Ryan, here you go. Here's a slush fund that, yep, you can,
Yeah.
you know, that's and for good reason too. Like, you know, these dogs are amazing, and it's like the with the retired like the retired people, veterans who have a service dog, and you know that help them with all. Like, and do you guys work along? Are you guys trying to work in alongside those that sort of thing as well?
In terms of the service, the like support dogs,
Yeah, the support dogs. Yeah, is sort of working in with those guys as well, or sort of separate.
kind of separate at the moment, but you know, we always open to have those conversations. But you know, these dogs, they're retired military dogs. They're not support dogs in terms of, they're not like ticked off to be classified as a support dog. But
Hmm.
I would argue they 100% are a support dog for their handler. You know, but yeah, technically they're not. But yeah, look, no, at the moment, kind of separate, but open to
Hmm.
discussion, working
And
together. Yeah.
And you'll, mate, I know that you're passionate about it, so you'll just keep, you'll eventually bang on the right door, mate, and things will change. So, and it's great work that you're doing, mate. So, and I wanted to highlight that in the podcast because you are doing great work with that, mate. So, well done on that. And mate, we're nearly finished, and it's just been an epic, story. But I want to talk to you now. This is sort of the final part of the podcast where you served in Afghanistan. You had boots on the ground. You had skin in the game. How are your thoughts on how Afghanistan ended up and Australia's achievements and involvement and how Afghanistan, well, how it ended up. Now it's back in the Taliban hands. Like, how do you look back on that now?
Yeah, so a number of, I guess, a few questions there, but to see how it ended up, absolutely devastated, really, or yeah, disgusted in the way it was sort of handled and the way it ended up. But if you were to ask me, am I surprised? No, no. You could have asked anyone who had spent any time on the ground in Afghanistan, what's going to happen when you just withdraw, say you withdraw everything one day, they would be able to tell you exactly that what happened would happen. The military is going to fold. It's going to, they're all just Taliban anyway. The police, everyone, like, give it a week. Yeah, it was that obvious over there that's what was going on. Like, we were shot at by Afghan police and, you know, they were just as dangerous sometimes. So it's not surprising, but it's upsetting to see, especially because we probably worked with a lot of good interpreters over there and a lot of good locals who put their trust in us, and then we just abandoned them to the Taliban. So yeah, that was hard to sort of swallow, I guess. But in terms of our achievement over there, as a military, or I think did we achieve what we went over there to achieve? Who knows? What did we go over there to achieve? No one ever told us what our mission was, what our strategy was. So I can't answer that, but I can say what our long-term strategy was. That is. So did we succeed? Who knows? No one knows because we don't know why we were there. But our tactical, I guess, mission that we were there doing time-sensitive targeting, hunting down high-value targets, Taliban leaders, making certain areas safer for the regular army to build schools and everything. Yeah, sure. When we were there, we did a top-notch job. We succeeded very, very well, very highly. Like I remember being in Kabul and seeing women walking down the street on their own. There was women in parliament. It was very, you thought, oh, okay, maybe we are making a difference here. Obviously, that's all gone now. But yeah, I think when we were there, we did a really, really good job.
Absolutely, and yeah, I think it was only destined. It's Vietnam 2.0, mate. It was only ever going to go one way, and yeah, it's a shame. But as you say, what you guys did to, as you say, seeing women be, and for 20 years, and let's not beat around the bush. 20 years, you gave a whole generation of Afghan people a different way of life. Like,
Mm.
people were going to school, people were going to university, they were getting jobs, and they weren't under Taliban rules. So for 20 years, yes, there are generations of Afghan people that lived a different life and so it's hard not to say that, there wasn't a difference made because there was.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Mm.
Mm.
And mate, if you can answer this one, looking back now, was well, actually, no, I'm not going to ask that question because you just answered it. Like, really, the mission to fight terror, was it a success? Well, yeah, you'd probably say no.
It's a tough question, right? Like, I think it's similar to like a war on drugs, right? Like, is that ever over? No, there's always going to be, the war on drugs is forever. Like, and war on terror, like, yeah, there's always going to be terrorists. There's always going to be people out there who want to, do harm for political gain. So it's an abstract sort of concept that it's not something we can really define as completed. So, and it's very hard to have quantitative sort of results. What did we achieve while being there? Well, there's probably, who knows? There might have been other attacks, some other incidences that might have occurred in Australia or the US or anywhere that didn't because of certain actions, but we'll
Mm.
never know. So it's very hard to show, was it a success or not? I just think, like I said, what we did when we were there, we did really well, and you know, the, we should be proud of it. Mm.
Absolutely. And I think too, mate, you took a lot of bad humans off the face of this earth that were going to harm innocent civilians. So, and that was they were coming from all around the world to fight against the coalition. So, as you say, it really that's how you got to look at it too, is that they were coming to Afghanistan to fight the coalition and
Mm.
from right around the world that were stopping attacks. So yes, you were stemming the flow of terrorism coming into Australia, into the US, into Europe, so that's how you got to look at it in from that, I guess, that lens.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think, terrorism at the moment has sort of taken a back seat to other geopolitical issues that are occurring at the
Yeah.
moment. But people forget back 20 years ago that terrorism was the number one issue on everyone's, on the news, on everyone's front of mind. So, the fact that it's not anymore, hey, maybe we did do something. Maybe we
Mhm.
did achieve, success in that aspect. Yeah.
Absolutely. And mate, how do you, especially being, as you said, you served in Afghanistan, so how do you reflect on the 41 soldiers that are lost from that conflict?
Yeah, look, that's a tough question. I mean, I guess it's hard because it's hard to look at what Afghanistan's become now, and you ask yourself, was it worth it? Losing all those lives. But I guess that's the mentality shouldn't be like that. It should be more on, what we did achieve while we were there, and these guys should never be forgotten.
Mm.
And this is part of our history for Australia. Should never be sort of tainted or forgotten as well. So, in honor of those 41 people who did pay the ultimate sacrifice. And, so that's all we can do is keep remembering what happened and remembering those 41 people. And,
And
um,
and doing this, mate, doing the podcast to
yeah,
shed a light on your service and their sacrifice, and as we both know, mate, 103,000 men and women have made the ultimate sacrifice for us to be sitting here doing this podcast now. Like, and yeah, you've served over in a war zone, mate, where the people of Afghanistan have got had bombs going off, and like we can sit in of how blessed we are to sit in a beautiful country.
correct.
So
Yeah,
yeah, no,
yeah.
that's the good way to look at it. And mate, knowing what you know now and all that you've been through, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self, and would he listen?
Ha, well, you probably wouldn't listen, but it's a really good question, then. I do think about this quite a bit. I wish I could go back and know what I know now. But I guess the biggest thing would be on how to deal with failure. Have a more practical and confident relationship with failure, and being able to fail fast, recover quick, and use it as a learning tool rather than trying to avoid activities that you think you might fail because you don't want to fail in them, right? So because I do feel like I restricted my growth somewhat because of my fear of failure. So how to deal with failure. The other thing, probably, yeah, about being confident, about learning about imposter syndrome, trying to manage that a bit better, I suppose. I would also say buy a house straight away because they're going to be worth twice as much now.
Yep.
uh, Yeah, but no, I think that for me, it's really been something self-reflecting on my life has been this fear of failure, this imposter syndrome and feeling of inadequacy, you know. So being able to deal with that, I think I could have achieved a bit more. Mm.
Hmm. Mate, great advice to any young player out there. Absolutely, that you learn nothing from success. You learn. I've learned some of my greatest lessons have come through failure, and
Mm.
that didn't
Mm.
work. Okay, how do I? Okay, I've got a bit of adversity. How do I build past that, and how do I overcome it, and make it successful? You know, the next time we try. And 100%, mate. That's great advice. And mate, looking back now with 19 years of service to your country, was joining the army still the best decision, even though everything you've gone through? Looking back now?
That is a interesting question and something depends when you would ask me this. If I was back when I just got out of the army and in that deep hole and black dark space, I would have said complete 100% not. I wish I never joined. It was the worst decision I ever made. Now I don't think I would have changed it. It's made me who I am. I've met some amazing people along the way, gone through some amazing highs, some amazing lows. Sorry, not amazing lows, but some
I
difficult
know what you
lows,
mean. Yeah, I know what you
amazing
mean.
highs.
Yeah.
Um, but it's made me who I am, and I don't think I would change it. So yeah, I think still, yeah, I wouldn't change a thing. Mm.
Absolutely, mate. And you know, it's you can't unfortunately in life you can't go back. You can only go forward. So, and mate, that was the you know that played out how it played out for you. And as you
Mm.
say, mate, it's made you who you are, and you're a bloody good human. So you know that's and those are my words to you, mate. You're a bloody good human.
No, I
So
appreciate it. Thanks, mate.
yeah. And so, mate, what advice would you give to any young person who listens to this podcast and is thinking, I want to go down that SF sort of path and or I'm an army reservist that and it's as I said at the start of the podcast, mate, it's not the traditional path of you
Yeah.
went down the very different, you know, there could be a reservist now who listens to this podcast and goes, actually, I want to do what Ryan did and I want to test myself. And what advice can you give to them to prepare to go down that SF sort of world?
Yeah, I would say again, don't listen to a lot of the naysayers. They're probably saying that because they don't have the courage to actually do it themselves. It is possible, no matter where you come from, whether you're a reservist, whether you're Air Force, Navy. In the SAS, you just have to be a part of the military. And when you get to selection, you'll be put on the same level as everyone else and assessed at the same level. So I would say just do it. You know, prepare properly, like get any of the physical guidance you can. The regiment still gives out training programs and all that. Do that because, yes, you will still get pushed to your limit on selection, but those programs were designed based off some of the sessions that you're going to do on selection. So it's easy for the staff to know if you have done that program. And it's a red flag straight away if you can't commit to, say, a 3 month training program that you've been given and it shows on selection, then you're already battling an uphill battle there. So if you get given guidance on how to train and how to prepare, follow it and do it. Yeah, I mean, just give it a crack. Don't overthink, and you got to be there at the end. That's it. That's just it. You know you can't be selected if you're not there at the end.
Absolutely. And mate, do you often like when you were in, say you were out, you know, in Afghanistan, could you refer back to your days of selection and this is why you do selection, like to be on those arduous missions that you were doing over there?
Look, I don't think you reflect back to to selection. I think selection is harder than physically probably harder than you know than what you'll be expected to do or a lot of times. I mean, yeah, there was some arduous sort of things we had to do, but yeah, I guess you've been through that experience and you've got that mental resilience now to be able to get through it. I mean, that's the whole point of selection is seeing how far you can go and testing you. So
Hmm.
But yeah, no, for sure. So yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
Just test yourself, absolutely.
Mhm.
And mate, couple of final questions, and then as I said, it's just been an absolute epic to get your story, and probably the longest version of your story
That's great.
yeah. So, but it's good to sit down with you, mate, and capture your story. And mate, looking back, you served with some amazing guys in the regiment and the wider army, and in SASR, you lost 5 guys killed in action in Afghanistan, but you've also lost guys through training, and the regiment's lost so many amazing guys. Do you, on Anzac Day, do you reflect on the guys that you served with and that are no longer here?
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone who served and lost people will do that, and not doesn't particularly have to be on Anzac Day as well. I think it's any opportunity you catch up with any mates from the military, you naturally start telling stories and joking, and it's a unique bond you have with blokes. So, like you might not see them for years, but it's like you see them again, and it's like yesterday you saw them. So yeah, not particularly just Anzac Day, but I think you'll go through that process anytime you catch up with mates who've been through similar experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. And mate, how do people get in contact with you if they want to reach out to ask you advice on, whiskey, or they want to ask you advice on, doing SF stuff, or
Yeah,
how do they get in contact with you?
probably on the Instagram's probably the best place. Ryan Wilson _ 1984. You can, reach me through there, or yeah, it's probably the best place.
Yeah, nice. I'll put that in the show notes, mate, and
Mm.
and tie everything to it. And mate, one final one. What are the plans going forward for you into the future, mate, with family, career, and just you as the awesome human that you are?
Yeah, look, family. I'm spending a lot of time. I got a 4-year-old daughter, so spending a lot of time with her and making sure I prioritize her in my life. With work, I'm on a mission at the moment to expand Whippersnapper globally to get it there. Also, with the charity Working Paws Australia, trying to build that, get some more fundraising and raise awareness about our mission there. And also started a business on the side with another colleague, another ex-regiment colleague, mate of mine, called Exis Group. So we're doing a lot of risk management and leadership training. So really want to build that in the next couple of years as well. Hmm.
Uh, sounds awesome, mate. And mate, I'm sure if it's like your military career, mate, it'll be a success because I know that you work hard, and it's, mate, all credit to you, mate. So I hope it all comes to fruition for you, and mate, you deserve it because you've bloody worked hard. So, mate, your story is one of true grit, determination, and succeeding at the elite level. Ryan, I want to thank you for all you do for veterans and first responders. And mate, thank you for coming on True Blue Conversations and sharing your story. It's been an absolute privilege to have you on.
Thanks for having me, mate. It's been amazing to tell my story and talk to you. So, no, I really appreciate it.
Awesome, mate. And I'll have to come over and catch up with you, mate, and have a whiskey with you. It'd be good to catch up over in Perth.
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. Cheers, mate.
Thanks for listening to True Blue Conversations with your host, Adam Bloom. Real talk with those that pledge to keep us safe with grit, sacrifice, and determination. See you next time.